We've got Jamie Gaskin, CEO of the United Way of Genesee County. And Jamie, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks a lot, Jason. Really happy to be here to talk to your listeners.
Well, we kind of did a little bit of a rundown during the break, but United Way of Genesee County, we've talked always in the past about the work that you guys do in Genesee County, helping those in need. And in fact, when we get away from the water crisis, we're going to talk about the income tax preparation that you guys are offering now. We'll step away from the water crisis towards the end of the segments. But, the cynic in me, and I told you during the break that you've got a lot of money coming into Flint right now. And I've seen some of that kind of being directed at the United Way of Genesee County. And that's one of the main reasons I wanted you in here, was to kind of talk about how some of that money is being pledged. Has it been released yet? That sort of stuff. Yeah. So let's talk, because some of the numbers I've seen are different than the numbers you told me during the break versus what you've raised and what's pledged. So let's talk about what you've raised first.
Hey, Jason, and I'll get to that, but I want to say one other thing.
Yes.
I live in the city of Flint, and I have my son on the weekends. This is personal. My son won't take a shower in the water.
Okay.
He's scared to brush his teeth. We pour bottled water over our toothbrushes, and I live here. I understand what it's like to have bottled water in my house, and quite frankly be concerned about that. And I think that's important. The people working on this problem here locally, there are hundreds of people, really thousands of people, but a lot of people I know that live here and are experiencing this at the same time as everybody else. But so let's talk about the money, the questions you're asking.
Well, actually, before we go into the money, and I appreciate you saying that, are you guys doing anything with the bottled water donations? Because we see people all the time. There was a rapper entertainer here Friday evening at one of our stations in the building. 80,000 bottles of water.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly helping coordinate and financially support the distribution of that water, and we'll talk about that. We've made about $285,000 in just-in-time grants to the Food Bank of Eastern Michigan to help them raise their capacity from what was before the declaration. We were paying for a couple of truckloads a week because that's what we could afford, and now they're handling as many as 25 semis a week.
Wow.
We're talking about 1.3 million pounds of water moving through the food bank every month, of course in the last 30 days, and we don't see that letting up until we know the water's safe. So that's a great example of where we've been investing money. Is the food bank is one of our grant recipients, and certainly the largest at this point.
Right, and I know Governor Snyder was there the other day kind of helping out at the Food Bank of Eastern Michigan, kind of packaging some things up and stuff like that. So, okay, well, I'm glad you clarified and let us know a little bit. And I hope this isn't a confrontational conversation. We're just having a conversation.
Yep.
But I appreciate that you said, hey, you live in the city of Flint and you're affected by this crisis also.
Right. Absolutely. So, to date, the United Way here in Flint has raised, and there's a difference between the money you raised and money that's pledged.
Right.
Okay, so
and that's what you're telling me.
Let's be very clear. So we've raised $1.7 million. That's our audited number as of last Friday. I'm not quite sure what happened over the weekend. And we've issued or spent a little over $700,000 to address the crisis. Now, I want to be clear about a couple things. One is zero administrative cost is coming to United Way from this. We're taking absolutely nothing for staff time, nothing for handling all this, and my people are working in overtime, weekends. Everybody's working all the time. We're not taking a penny, right? And all the money that we do raise that isn't spent for immediate response is being turned over to the Community Foundation of Greater Flint for the Child, Youth, Health, and Development Fund, right? And so your listeners know, we have a $100 million goal for that fund, and it's a fund of the Community Foundation of Greater Flint, and it's really being set up to address the next 20 years for this cohort of children ages 0 to 6 and their families. We're talking about over 9,000 kids exposed. And we didn't just pluck a number out of the air. Dr. Monahan Atisha, the Hurley physician who's been so involved with this, has set a very specific plan about all the interventions these kids need. So I know it's hard to have this conversation. There's so many details.
We got time.
But so what people want to know is, so we, again, going back, the United Way's taken in $1.7 million. We've invested $700,000 of that so far. Where's that money going? So let me tell you where it's at. We spent just about $300,000 buying filters and clean water for people prior to the emergency declaration. So before the state had declared, before the county had upped the declaration, before the city, we had been raising and spending money in the city around clean water and filters, and we took all the money we could to do that, right? Since then, now we have what's almost I can describe as an endless supply of bottled water and filters. But we have to now find a way to get it out into the community at scale. So we're funding the nonprofit community to respond at scale. So I'm going to give you some examples. The food bank, we've provided $285,000 in grants, and just yesterday we helped the food bank acquire 2 new semi-trucks donated by Myers. Thank you, Myers, right? We need more trucks. it's,
Sounds like it.
Yeah,
I mean, absolutely.
And the food bank's going to have to move from water to fresh food as soon as we know that we don't have to be on bottled water. We've provided a $50,000 grant to Catholic Charities for the water response. We've provided a $25,000 grant to the Red Cross, as well as given them a full-time person from our team to help coordinate the volunteer center. We've provided a $15,000 grant to the Salvation Army. We've provided a $25,000 grant to the county health department to hire a prevention specialist that's on board right now. We provided $5,000 on the first weekend, quite frankly, to rent trucks. I bought 5,000 hand warmers. We had as many as 700 volunteers out on the streets in sub-zero temperatures for 8 hours at a time. And we had to put something so we avoided frostbite. When this thing first went down, I was buying dollies, box cutters, everything to run the fire stations. So, those are some very practical examples. The other huge one is, and there's been some concerns, and we can talk about this later, but the 211 phone system. We have 7 call centers throughout the state handling Flint calls. We've had as many calls in the last 30 days as we get in 6 months. And that's been an extreme stress on that phone system, and we have to pay for every one of those calls. There's
I forgot your time with 211 system.
That we're looking at a doubling of that budget this year, which normally costs about $150,000 a year. We're going to double that just to be able to afford answering questions for people with the thousands and thousands of phone calls. So this is what I want your listeners to understand is that this is how the United Way is investing those dollars, and any money left over hits this $100 million fund because we know we're going to have a lot of expenses long term for these kids.
Well, let's talk. You said your whole business model has changed, and we'll go into that, and we've got about 15 minutes left. What was the typical budget that you guys were working with prior to the water crisis?
Well, our annual budget's between $5 and $6 million a year, right? I can tell you in the last month, that 1.7 that we've raised, 1.4 million of that was raised in the last 30 days. Okay. So you can just the processing and dealing with that on a daily basis. More than 7,000 new donors. Yeah. Of course, everybody hears about the big ones, right? But most of the at least half the donations are made by people sending $5, $10, $20.
No, I gotta tell you, if I were someone making a donation, and I'm looking at all these things, the one that would stick out to me would be the United Way, because of your history and what you've already done here and your recognition. That's one that I would feel safe donating to, where some of these other ones I'm hearing donations here and there, and I'm just wondering, well, where's that money going, And
we've been talking about this publicly. We even had some complaints that we filed with the Attorney General and the prosecutor because people were using our logo on other websites without permission.
Really?
That was about a week and a half ago. Some group was selling bracelets downtown. They were based out of Waterford, Michigan. They had taken the United Way logo and the Pure Michigan logo, put it on their website, and we're raising money with it. And we're hoping they're going to be prosecuted. I know it's being looked into. But there's probably 50 to 70 GoFundMe sites set up in around this crisis. I mean, and I don't know where they go. I mean,
right. I don't know where they go.
So, I mean, I'm sure some of them are legitimate, right? I don't want to paint this brush across the whole thing, but we're telling people, if you don't know where your money is going, you don't know where your money is going.
Sure.
As simple as that is, I would be making sure I knew exactly who was running whatever fund I was investing in. I didn't want to get away with this either without talking a little bit about some of the big gifts that have been announced publicly lately, because there's some confusion.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some confusion. So General Motors has made a $3 million gift, and we are grateful for that gift. But that gift is about $600,000 over the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. We're still working with General Motors to work out the details about how this gets invested, but it'll fund early education programs every year. It'll fund different kinds of programs throughout the community. A great example is like Project Skip with the GISD, where they do in-home visits, early education stuff. But we've got to work that out. That's a long-term gift, and we're still trying to figure out how we release that grant money. So it is not a $3 million check to the United Way. It's $600,000 each of the next 5 years. So that's important for people to understand.
And you have been talking to them for a while about this as well, because there were some cynics out there that said, Ralph Nader came in and said Flint or GM and the UAW probably should have done more to bring this to the attention once they stopped water.
Yes.
And they said the timing was peculiar, but you can say you've been talking to them prior to that.
Oh, yeah, and let me emphasize, it's the UAW and GM together.
Yes.
And they're together, those groups have meant that semi after semi after semi of water have gotten here. It's meant that, so much in terms of investment. But I also don't want to leave out, Jason, the labor movement has responded amazingly. The plumbers and pipe fitters have, every day working out of the Emergency Operations Center, I see, some days there's as many as 21 teams of plumbers and pipe fitters out working. The Carpenters Union, they brought 700 people up to the Volunteer Center on a Saturday, distributed 3 semi-full trucks full of water. The union community has stepped up and owned a great deal of responsibility for the response, and I can't thank that community enough. I know, again, it's so complicated here, but
that's why we had you in. We wanted hopefully a little bit. Let's get back to some of the pledged money.
Yes.
Because we talked GM, we talked UAW, we got a little bit away from that, but also Detroit Pistons. Tom Goris, who has Flint ties, has pledged, I think, $10 million.
Yes. So he's pledged to raise $10 million, and $1 million of that 10 has been released.
Okay.
$500,000 of that went to the Community Foundation of Greater Flint as a lead gift, to this Child Health and Development Fund. Mm-hmm. That's, again, with a $100 million goal for that fund. $250,000 went to the Red Cross, and that supports emergency operation or volunteer operations center for the next 2 years. And we're a partner in operating that center with the Red Cross. And, that they handle between 150 and 700 volunteers a day, depending on the day. 5 emergency response vehicles at least going out in teams every day, house to house, to address problems. So $250,000 went to the Red Cross. $250,000 came to the United Way of Genesee County, and that's part of that 1.7 I said we've raised to this point. The day we got that $250,000, we made a $200,000 commitment, the check the same day to the food bank to go again with the $285,000 we'd committed, and we made a $50,000 commitment that same day to Catholic Charities. So as soon as that money hit our door, it went right out. Now the other $9 million associated with what Mr. Goris has pledged, their team is here in the community trying to figure out how to best invest that $10 million or that other $9 million. They've met with the mayor, they've met with us, they met with Community Foundation, Red Cross, other people, Dr. Mona, Hannah, Atisha, and the Goris community of companies and their family, Platinum Equity, it's going to make decisions about how to best invest that money. I know they're concerned about economic development. I know they're concerned about the pipes in the ground. I know they're concerned about immediate response, and they're really listening. And I really look forward to understanding how that other $9 million gets invested in the community as we move forward with the crisis.
We got to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back. We've got Jamie Gaskin, CEO of the United Way of Genesee County, in the studio with us, kind of talking about how they've gone into overdrive. I got to imagine you're balancing the books every day with all these monetary donations that are coming in. As you said, the amount of donations in just the past 30 days, your accountant on staff or your bookkeeper on staff has got to be going. She's got to be going nuts.
Oh, I mean, you're talking about, depending on what's happened in the immediate day before, we might have $15,000 in revenue overnight, or we might have $50,000 in revenue. I mean, it's just, I don't want to say it is what it is, but we have to process all that,
right.
And all that money gets accounted for into a special Flint water fund. Mm-hmm. And that's how we can know not to take any of it for admin and to make sure it gets to the right places.
We'll take a quick commercial break, come back with Jamie Gaskin. He'll go to the top of the hour. Stick around. More conversations with Jason Cooper on Flint's News Talk 1470 WFNT.
Hubbard's Military Supply is the only place you'll find authentic military equipment and collectibles. And we're not talking about some place that just has a rack of hats and t-shirts. Hubbard's on Richfield Road has been in business for over 20 years for good reason. They carry everything for every branch of the service. Pins, patches, medals, outfits, and more for every rank, unit, and special force from Iraq all the way back to World War I. Located on Richfield Road, just west of Genesee Road in Flint. Call them at 736-7011.
Why can't I stop?
I can quit anytime.
Just one more drink.
If you or someone you love is struggling with a drug or alcohol addiction, Alpha Recovery is here to help. Alpha Recovery helps you find the best program that fits your individual needs. We offer resort-style treatment that is private and discreet. Many private insurance plans cover 100% of the cost. You deserve caring, individualized, evidence-based treatment. Make the path to recovery easier. Call now to find out about treatment options and insurance coverage. Drug addiction is a complex disease. You need a proven solution. Our staff has 123 years of combined addiction treatment experience. Don't wait to start your recovery. Call now, 800-931-0059. 800-931-0059. The call and information are free. Have all your questions answered on the first free call. No pressure, no obligation. Call now, 800-931-0059. That's 800-931-0059.
1470 WFNT Flint, WFNT.com.
You're listening to Conversations with Jason Cooper, powered by Cranberries Cafe, here on Flint's News Talk 1470 WFNT.
All right, Jason Cooper back with you on Flint's News Talk 1470 WFNT. Glad to be with you today. We got about 5 minutes left. We're joined in studio, United Way of Genesee County CEO Jamie Gaskin, and I got to tell you, he looks tired, and he's doing a lot of work, and we certainly appreciate that there. We were just talking a minute ago, though, your background, you came from the Boys and Girls Club. You went to the United Way of Genesee County to become their CEO a few years ago. And I was saying, you can't imagine that something like this will happen. But you said, thankfully, because of all the agreements with some of the agencies, you were somewhat prepared for this.
Well, anybody listening probably remembers the ice storm a couple of years ago, and it created such an upheaval for a couple of weeks for people. We had hundreds of people living at the Red Cross, and during that ice storm, we really came together. And Commissioner Clack from the government side led some of this work for Genesee County. We had the Red Cross, United Way. We all got together and we said, how can we be prepared when something happens like this again? We actually set up a $100,000 reserve fund for disaster response.
Thinking that would be...
Well, a tornado or a train car tips over. None of this we could have anticipated. So when this thing really lit fire here about 3 months ago, again, prior to the declaration, we had a pool of dollars readily available. And that same morning, we started buying trucks of water to go with diapers for the diaper bank, because we knew that was the most vulnerable population. We bought 5,000 pure faucet mount filters that were distributed that first weekend at the University of Michigan Flint. And then we started working with our donors to raise money to buy more. So I just want the listeners to understand that we learned a lot from the ice storm, and at least set the stage for us to have broken down the silos as we address this. But I'd also tell you, listen, make no mistake, this is a disaster, and they call it a disaster because it's a disaster. It's difficult every single day. I check in with the Emergency Operations Center and try and understand the response at scale, try to remove barriers to getting people who need water. And people are just, working every single day. That Operations Center is open 7 days a week. It's open till 8 or 9 at night. It opens early in the morning, and there's teams of people trying to make sure people have access to clean drinking water, trying to get this recycling thing worked out. I know that's been kind of cranked up over the last few days.
You want to mention something about that?
Yeah. For Flint residents, one, you got the recycling bucket. If you don't have a recycling bucket, you need to get a hold of one of those, or clear plastic bags. You can put out clear plastic bags, fill them with the water bottles, put them with your curbside stuff, and let's recycle, because, we're talking about a line of plastic that goes from here to the moon and back again.
I know.
So, we want people to recycle. You can drop off stuff at the fire stations 1, 5, and 8 too. They'll take them. Bill Carr Signs, Young's Environmental, Dover and Company on Hall Street. There's a number of locations that you can drop off the recyclables if you're kind of overwhelmed with it. But let's keep this off the street. We don't need another disaster to follow this disaster with plastic water bottles floating around for the next decade.
Now, we got about a minute left. I want to take you away from the water crisis for a moment, because I'm sure you're thinking about that 99% of the time, 100% of the time, but you're also doing some things to help those in need. It's income tax time.
Yes, and so for those of you that, calling 211 is the answer for that too, to find out where the income tax sites are. But this is a time when people need some help getting their income taxes done, and we have income tax clinics around the city that you come in, you work with a volunteer, you get your income tax filed. It won't cost you anything, right? And you'll get that return. You won't have to pay $200 or $300 that quite frankly many low-income families need to get through the day. So we really want to encourage people to go out and take advantage of that service as well.
Jamie Gaskin, CEO of the United Way of Genesee County, thank you for coming in. Thank you for everything that you're doing, and hopefully we can get some future conversations.
Anytime, Jason. I'll be happy to come in and answer any questions that I can.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for me today. Again, thanks again to Jamie Gaskin, United Way of Genesee County CEO. He's stressed, and he's doing a great job, and we appreciate him and the United Way for all that they're doing.